Hello, listeners. The movie starts with two Soviet astronauts working on a space station called Salyut, which is an orbiting substation of the Soviet Union. These astronauts had been out repairing a damaged part of the station for over 4 hours. Because of the long hours they had spent outside, Mission Control instructed them to return inside the space station. As they finished their work and began to make their way back, an unfortunate accident occurred. A nail punctured the glove of one of the astronauts, Laze, causing a hole to form. This led to the slow release of oxygen from his spacesuit. Seeing this, his partner Vladimir acted quickly to help. He managed to get Laze back inside the station, but as Vladimir followed, something distracted him, a flashing light. This brief moment caused a delay in closing the door, unknowingly putting Laze's life in greater danger. Fortunately, after some time, both Vladimir and Laz made it safely back to Earth. However, due to Vladimir's mistake in space, a doctor declared him unfit for any future space missions. This news hit Vladimir hard. He returned home feeling defeated and sad. When he reunited with his wife Nina, she was overjoyed to see him. But after spending so many years in space, Vladimir had trouble adjusting back to life on Earth. His mental state was fragile, and he had even forgotten simple things, like how gravity works. One day, without thinking, he threw a glass off the balcony, unaware of the consequences. After some time, we shift back to the space station, now under the control of Russian scientists from the Soviet Union, who are managing everything remotely from Earth. However, things take a dangerous turn when the station is hit by an asteroid. This impact causes serious malfunctions, and soon the scientists lose complete control over the station. The situation quickly becomes critical, as the space station is now on a path to crash into Earth. News of the Soviet Union's loss of control spreads rapidly around the globe, causing widespread concern. People everywhere are anxious, not knowing where the station might fall or what kind of damage it could cause. Vladimir sees this breaking news, including reports that Russian scientists are already planning a daring rescue mission to regain control of the station before it crashes. The rescue plan involves sending another spacecraft to dock with the malfunctioning station and bring it back under control. While all this is happening, we see Vladimir and his friend Victor out fishing. Like Vladimir, Victor is also an astronaut. They are talking and enjoying their time when a man from the Russian Space Agency approaches them. He informs Victor that he has been chosen for the upcoming rescue mission. Victor leaves with the man, and after some time, he arrives at the Space Agency headquarters, where he meets Valerie, the head of the control room. Valerie briefs Victor on the mission and explains that before he can launch into space, he will need to practice docking the rescue spacecraft with the space station through a simulation. Victor begins the simulation and tries his hardest to dock the spacecraft with the station, but every time he attempts, he fails. Valerie, the head of the control room, calls in other astronauts, assigning them the same task, but none of them can successfully dock the moving spacecraft with the space station. The problem lies in the fact that both the station and the spacecraft are moving at high speeds, and matching their velocity to dock them is an incredibly difficult task. It's a challenge similar to the one we saw in the movie Interstellar. Frustrated by the lack of progress, Valerie decides to try the simulation himself, but even he fails. Docking two moving objects in space is much harder than expected, and the difficulty is only increasing as time passes. As the danger of the mission becomes more apparent, many astronauts refuse to participate in the rescue. With fewer options left, Valerie finally assigns the mission to Victor, but it's clear they will need two people to make the mission possible. Victor meets with Vladimir to discuss the details of the assignment, explaining how serious and dangerous it is. After thinking it over, Vladimir agrees to join the mission. Victor, who is excited but anxious, breaks the news to his wife. She's pregnant and reacts with anger, upset that he would risk his life on such a dangerous mission at such an important time. Meanwhile, Vladimir takes his wife, Nina, out to a restaurant to tell her about his decision to join the mission. Nina, who understands the stress Vladimir has been under since his return from space, tries to convince him not to go. She's concerned for his well-being, especially after all he has been through. But Vladimir is determined, and despite her pleas, he refuses to change his mind. This leaves Nina upset, and she walks away from the dinner in anger. Despite their family tensions, Victor and Vladimir join the mission. After completing their training, they are ready for launch. Soon, both of them are sent into space, prepared to face the immense challenge ahead. Once their spacecraft is under the control of the crew station, Vladimir and Victor are tasked with docking and repairing the damaged space station. As they approach, the spacecraft almost collides with the space station, narrowly avoiding disaster. The control room warns them that they only have 3 attempts to dock the spacecraft to the station. Vladimir, confident in his abilities, carefully brings the spacecraft closer to the station. He tries to dock, but fails and almost crashes into the station again. In a quick reaction, Vladimir changes the the spacecraft's direction at the last moment, narrowly avoiding a collision. After this tense moment, Victor, relying on his calculations, instructs Vladimir to maintain a speed of 35 centimeters per second, which is about 1 kilometer per hour. He explains that if they fail again, the space station could crash. The pressure is immense, but Vladimir attempts another docking. After struggling through several challenges, Vladimir finally manages to successfully dock the spacecraft with the station. Both men are filled with relief and joy. Vladimir immediately informs Valerie in the control room, who shares the good news with the rest of the team. The entire control room erupts in celebration. However, the mission is not yet complete. Vladimir and Victor still need to enter the space station and repair it. Valerie, concerned for the mission's success, instructs Vladimir to remain on the spacecraft while Victor goes inside. Valerie reasons that if something happens to Victor while inside the station, Vladimir will still be available to pilot the spacecraft and complete the mission. Following Valerie's orders, Victor opens the door to the space station and enters. Inside, he finds the station in chaos. Everything is frozen. It turns out that the water tank on the space station had burst, causing the freezing conditions. Victor quickly relays this information to Vladimir, who decides to join him inside the station, despite the risks. After informing the control room about the situation, both Vladimir and Victor realize they have been working non-stop for 24 hours. Exhausted and recognizing the need to rest, they return to the spacecraft to recover before continuing their mission. Back in the control room, the team is brainstorming ways to safely bring the space station back to Earth. They come up with a plan, melt the frozen ice inside the station, and restart its entire system. The goal is to guide the station into a controlled descent, aiming to drop it into the Indian Ocean. However, this plan will take at least 2 more days, and Vladimir and Victor only have enough supplies for 10 days. Every time they open the station's door, the temperature inside their spacecraft drops dangerously low, which could put their lives at risk. Despite the risks, Valerie decides to push forward, giving Vladimir and Victor 5 days to complete their tasks inside the station. If they can't finish in time, the mission will be abandoned, and the space station will be forced to crash into Earth. Vladimir and Victor get to work immediately. Their first task is to repair the station's solar panels so that they can restore power to the heaters. Without heat, the ice inside the station will never melt, and they won't be able to restart the system. After working for hours, they finally manage to get the solar panels functioning again, allowing the heaters to gradually raise the temperature inside the station. We see them carefully cleaning up the droplets of water that have formed as the ice melts. As they finish cleaning, Vladimir surprises Victor with a bottle of wine he had secretly brought with him. They share a quiet moment, drinking and talking, when suddenly they notice something strange: a cockroach flying around inside the spacecraft. It must have come aboard with them when they first entered the station. The sight of the insect adds an eerie touch to their already tense situation. Despite the challenges, Vladimir and Victor continue working on the space station, but just as they are making progress, they encounter another problem. The gears of the station stop working. Vladimir realizes he needs to go outside into space and repair some sensors on the solar panels. While out there, he discovers that one of the sensors is bent, making it impossible for the panels to work properly. Meanwhile, inside the spacecraft, things take a dangerous turn. As Victor monitors the systems, a drop of water accidentally lands on the circuit board, causing a short circuit and sparking a fire. Victor acts quickly, depressurizing the spacecraft to extinguish the flames. However, the fire severely damages the system, and the situation becomes critical. They now have no choice but to abandon the mission. The space station will have to crash into Earth, and they must return immediately. In the chaos, Victor suffers a severe injury. Half of his face gets burned during the fire. Meanwhile, we see NASA launching their spacecraft from Earth as part of their own rescue mission. However, inside the space station, Victor starts experiencing hallucinations, imagining that the Americans are coming to save him. Believing this to be real, he prepares to open the space station door, but before he can do so, Vladimir intervenes and stops him just in time. Back in the control room, Valerie and the other scientists realize the situation has become critical. The oxygen supply aboard the space station is running dangerously low, and they estimate that there are only a few hours of breathable air left. Faced with this grim reality, Valerie informs Vladimir that only one of them can be saved with the remaining oxygen. With no other options, the plan is made to save Victor, and Valerie tells Vladimir that he will need to stay behind. Vladimir, despite his own desire to live, agrees to sacrifice himself so that Victor can return to Earth. Valerie arranges for Vladimir's wife, Nina, to come to the space agency for one final conversation with her husband. When Nina arrives with their daughter, she is overcome with emotion, crying as she speaks to Vladimir for what she believes will be the last time. Through her tears, she tells him that he can't leave them, and that that he has to come back. In her frustration and heartbreak, she leaves the room, unable to bear the thought of losing him. Seeing this unfold, Valerie is filled with guilt and anger over the impossible decision he has made. He even throws a chair in frustration. Meanwhile, back on the space station, Vladimir calmly explains to Victor that he has to go back to Earth alone. But Victor refuses to abandon Vladimir and proposes a new plan. He suggests that they both go outside into space and try to fix the solar panels by removing the metal debris that's blocking them. If they can get the solar panels working again, they can restore power to the station and generate enough oxygen for them both to survive. Determined, Vladimir and Victor suit up and head outside to attempt the risky repair. After working together, they manage to remove the metal piece from the solar panels, but the panels still aren't generating enough power. The sun sets, and both men feel the weight of their failure. They sit together, disappointed, talking about their families and reflecting on their lives. But then, as the temperature drops in the cold environment, Vladimir realizes that the metal has become brittle. With renewed hope, he tries one last time to remove the piece of debris, and this time, it works. The solar panels come back online, and the space station's systems spring to life. Power is restored, and the control room on Earth is able to regain full control of the station, saving it from crashing into Earth. Both Vladimir and Victor have succeeded in their mission. As they celebrate, the American spacecraft passes by them. One of the astronauts aboard the NASA craft salutes them as they continue on their way, acknowledging their incredible achievement. Vladimir and Victor send a message back to the control room, reporting that everything is under control. The control room erupts in joy, and the movie ends on this triumphant note. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, bye-bye.